Success Aches. Welcome back, Philip Payne, Todd Perry.
Troy Dabrowski in the building.
I'm excited. This is another one, Todd Perry. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
For sure. So to give just a little bit of background, and I don't have too much, but I'll talk a little bit about how we all know each other, and kind of where we're at. But so Todd, VP of A&R over at Create Music, correct? And we met a couple months back. Obviously, Payne and I have history working with Tory. And we met when you went and pretty much were like the most aggressive and first person to go after signing him after he got out of the Interscope deal. Throughout that time, we've obviously spoken a handful of times, hung out here and there, and have also gone to learn a little bit more about your story. We are two of many people around us that are always impressed by the way you move and the things that you're up to. I think it's very obvious that you go extremely hard for your clients. So I think that's something we should talk about today. And it seems like, no matter what kind of curveballs are thrown at you or whatever sort of, bullshit, for lack of better words, you have to deal with, you're kind of out there with the same passion and energy, which is something that every sort of artist deserves, whether it's in their manager, A&R, so on and so forth. So we could kick it off there. Thank you for joining us again.
Payne, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Payne, I don't know if you have anything that you kind of want to kick off with, but one thing that Todd told me that was really interesting. I'm gonna take it right all the way back, not all the way back to the beginning, but Todd told me he used to be a studio runner, which I definitely want to talk about because we obviously have countless nights in the studio. You've spent probably over hundreds of nights in the studio. And I've always seen kind of like, whether it's the runner or somebody working in the studio, it's an interesting position because I've always thought, like, what does this person want to be up to? They want to be making music? Do they want to be an engineer? Do they want to work in music at some different sort of capacity? And you're in sort of a weird spot in that position, right? Because the way that I've experienced it is it's kind of like taboo for the runner to really speak up, at certain times, talk about, give an opinion, or be involved in certain conversations, obviously. And the job at hand is essentially, to do what the artists or the people renting out the studio need. So Todd, I really want to start there, if it's cool, and just hear like what studio you started at. Was this your start in music? And then we can kind of maybe dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, man. That's a good place to start. For me, a little bit before the studio, just some context is, I was a studio runner for a record producer executive. His name's Laney Stewart, and Laney is like notable for like discovering The Dream. His brother Tricky Stewart, Esther Dean, tons of huge songwriters and producers who he's discovered and cultivated talent-wise, and then also a great producer himself and an executive himself, publisher. But I started as a studio runner intern after college. So that was even more taboo because I went to Morehouse in Atlanta. And if you know Morehouse and like the guys that come out of Morehouse, they have like this expectancy sometimes about the black college, black man in school, and when you get out of school you're supposed to be like you've arrived.
What was that atmosphere like? What was that atmosphere being on that campus and being around all those people? That definitely influenced you to be where you are right now, for sure. Just being around that energy.
I mean, if it without Morehouse, I would not be in music. Wow. Probably to where I am now. It was just a great experience, man. It was like, I went to school. I only had from like first grade to high school 2 Black teachers.
Wow.
So, you know, I grew up I'm from Philly. So, you know, in school, that was my experience. Outside of school, my cousins and stuff like that was the Black experience. But in school, I never really seen it like that. So I was always a minority in every high school and every middle school that I was in. And so for me, going to Morehouse was like, you got to see a bunch of Black men who were, you know, striving for the same thing all in one, not only as a student body, but then also as seeing the teachers who were Black and everybody Black, you know what I'm saying? And that was just, that was amazing for me. And then outside of the gates of Morehouse was Atlanta, which was the, you know, 2007 to 2011 is when I went there. So, you know, music at that time in Atlanta was just like, fuck, you know, like I remember making I made a like a playlist, or it might've been a CD. I made it like burnt a CD of just like all these Atlanta, like from the Idlewild soundtrack, that was 2006, Outkast. And then like, I made this sound from early Atlanta stuff and I remember listening to it on the plane as I landed, because I'd never been to Atlanta before.
Yeah.
So when I visited school, I was like, damn, like, this is what is, you know what I'm saying? And then you get to the school and you can literally hear this, you can hear the soundtrack to the city while being at school. Like Morehouse is in the hood, it's in the West End. So like, you get to really feel like, you know what I'm saying, what it really is. So that was a great experience for me. But the original question, the studio. So yeah, I met a great artist and songwriter at Morehouse, who was my roommate, and he got a publishing deal. Laney signed him while we were in college. And so I was just like, at the time, I wanted to be in the music business my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like, but sometimes when you're like a kid and you have like a goal in your mind, then you live life, and life kind of like either can encourage that dream or can deter you from like it kind of being like, actually that's really far out, you know, especially from Philly. Is like, I remember is like, we had this thing called show and tell. You had to come and show the kids a toy or what you wanted to do. And mine was, I was the owner of a record label. And I only said it because I seen it on TV, but I didn't know how. I just love music, you know what I'm saying? And then life started to kick in, and formal education is like, yo, maybe you should be a lawyer, you know what I'm saying? So when I went to Morehouse, that was what was in my mind. Like, if I'm gonna be in the music business, the only way for me to do it is to be a lawyer. So my trajectory was to go to law school. I meet this kid, and he was super dope. He was like writing songs and singing songs on YouTube, and he sang on MTV Super Sweet 16. And then Laney was watching the episode, and he signed him to a publishing deal. And when he signed him, he was like, yo, man, like, this guy Laney's trying to sign me, and he's like huge. And I was like, fuck. I was like, man, don't leave me. Like, that was my biggest thing. I was like, dog, like, I'm reading Wikipedia and I'm like, oh shit, this dude is huge. Yeah. And I'm like, bruh, you know what I'm saying? I was a junior, and he left to go do that. And so this was around the time of like AirTran, the airline, where you could, if you were a college student, you could fly for $90. And so I would just fly from Atlanta to LA, like literally every time I had $150, I would book a ticket to go to LA. And through literally like a 1.5, 2-year process, I got to like meet Laney and everybody, his brothers, and like really get to understand like what it was, and really just be around the music, you know what I'm saying? Because I just love it. So was around it, graduated, and I was applying to law school. And one time I was in LA, and Laney's like, yo, man, I just started this joint venture with Universal, and I'm signing writers and producers, and you need to make up you've been here 20 times. What you trying to do? Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I'm about to go to law school. He's like, man, fuck that. He was like, here's the deal. I'll make this deal. I'll teach you everything I know, but you can't go back to Philly. And this was like, I was supposed to go to work. Like I was working at a law firm. I was working at the Cochran law firm in Philly. And I was supposed to go back to work. I was like a legal assistant, and it was a Sunday, and I was like, all right, fuck it. The next morning came, I slept at the studio, and the next morning I called my job and I was like, yo, I quit. Wow. And then I called my mom and I was like, yo, I'm not coming back. And she was like, what the fuck are you doing? And that was how I became a studio runner, was like that opportunity. The taboo part about it was that I bringing the Morehouse thing in, I was like, I got this degree. I had taken the LSAT. I was applying to law school. Like that seemed like it made way more sense than almost what seemed to be like taking a step back. Nope, I'm not getting paid. I'm doing A&R, which my parents didn't know what the fuck that was. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping at my homie's parents' crib. And that was 9 years ago.
Right. So in that process, did you have a vision and goal of what you wanted while you were doing the studio running? Like, did you already have like the things that you wanted to do? And then also, when did that moment come where you felt confident enough to say something, like to actually give your opinion and like stand behind it, you know, in front of an artist or whoever it was that gave you that confidence to be like, okay, I trust myself, I'm ready to go? Like, how did it get to that place?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I was blessed with was, I call them good shepherds. When you have the opportunity, the music business is something that you really have to actually get your hands on. There's no degree that makes you qualified for the business side of it, like unless you want to be a lawyer, but like you really got to get in it and learn it, like, you know, from the ground up. And if you're blessed to have, like I was, to have a shepherd who was willing to teach you things and really lay out a platform that is one that is more educationally driven than it is servant driven. You know what I'm saying? More so than it is like, just do it and don't ask me any questions. I was like, around those guys, I was like, I got to ask all the questions that I wanted to ask. You know, I got to, there was like certain things that I was doing that I knew was for my good. I didn't know how it would apply in the future, but I did know, like, just simple things like as a runner, you know, going to get food as a studio runner is important, right? Because it shows you that you pay attention to detail. If you have 11 orders that you got to go pick up and you don't fuck up any of the orders, to everyone else in the room who's like paying attention to what you're doing, and it's like, yo, every time this nigga comes back, he always gets the orders right. So like that is a sign into how your mind works. Is like, you follow direction, you strive to be, you know, as perfect as possible, and you take your job serious. Because if you take getting food serious, then you're going to take managing an artist serious. Then you're going to take, you know, combing through a record serious. You're going to take through, you know what I mean? You can kind of see those parallels. Yeah. And so, in my mind, I knew that I wanted to be in some space of manager. I love the music. I'm a song guy first. So I always loved the songs, and I always loved how people reacted when they saw their favorite artist or when they heard their favorite song. So I knew that it was somewhere in between the music and the artist and the writer and producer and the audience, right? That's where I knew I wanted to sit. And that can be a manager, that can be A&R, that can be a few different things, which I hadn't really mastered what it is, but I knew that everything that I was taking in was from that perspective, was me looking at regurgitating the information back one day from that position. So I did know that.
So what in the studio do you think you picked up? Because obviously, like, it's a different situation than I guess I imagined, right? I thought maybe you had gone out to LA or wherever. I didn't know if it was in Philly or in Atlanta.
No, it was in LA, yeah.
Right.
I went from Philly to LA.
Right. So you're in LA. And like you said, you kind of had a shepherd, somebody that brought you in and was like, yo, you're gonna learn the job day to day as being a studio runner, but they kind of, wanted to teach you, which is really important. And it
Super
gives
important.
you a lot more insight. Oh damn, 1 sec. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Can you share like who was your shepherd? Like, who were your mentors when you were like first like coming into it that you like are super thankful for, that gave you information that you like, yo, I'll never forget that?
Yeah, I mean, Laney was the first one. He was like, he was the first main mentor, right? And even I would say even like off shooting from him, his brother Mark was like a shadow. I always like how Mark managed Dream and Trick, and I watched him from afar.
Yeah.
But Laney, really, he was just like, he was like I said, like Mr. Miyagi, in Karate Kid. He's like, wax on, wax off. It's like, yo, do this, and you're waxing on and you're waxing off. You don't know that I'm showing you defense. Yeah. I'm really showing you what defense is. And that's what he was. It was like, yo, do this. Literally every step of the way. Wow. Was a new layer of him exposing me to something else. At first, it was just creative. It was like understanding why people like certain songs. That was like the first things. And like the formula that exists behind great songwriting, great artistry, like what the ingredients. I always say, like, everyone looks at the end result, but until you understand every single layer that it takes to make a cake, right? And you know, like, oh, wow, okay, that's why that's that way. That's why the end looks like that. And working from that perspective is really what he showed me. And then also after he was like showing me how to do shit, he was like, okay, now go figure it out. Like literally, he was like, I remember one day him telling me, and he also had a high bar excellence, very high bar. So like, it was just like, you just wanted to continually rise to like doing great shit, around him. And he expected that from everybody that was around him. It was like, he expected from how the studio looked to how everything was just like supposed to be supreme. We used to do these things called fire drills, which was, he would say, yo, if Beyonce walked in here right now, what would we do if she walked in right now? And like, that was like the bar for us, And so when I say us, it was a lot of people that didn't make it. It was like a lot of people that were there and they work regular jobs now. You know what I'm saying? And there was a lot of people who like, it was a gauntlet. It was like, yo, do you have what it takes? And really, it's like, I come from like a no excuses thing. Like, I don't give a fuck if you don't have any money, figure it out. Because really, the part about the music business that is people should master is every day we're all figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? And it's your willingness to continue to figure that shit out. Definitely. Like, if you're a manager, your artist doesn't want to hear, I don't know. They said, the guy said, you know what I'm saying? The promoter said, it's like, yo, fuck it. Like, you got to figure that shit out.
To make it happen.
And so that was always my outlook on shit. And that was always that's how I approach things, And so,
He let y'all, he showed you the blueprint, but then he put you in positions and put you in situations and empowered you to make your own blueprint. I think
absolutely.
That's powerful, man. That shows. It's one of the greatest characteristics of a great leader. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Was there anybody you met like during your time there that made an impact on you besides Lainey or the people that brought you in? Like, was there anybody that you met there that you still to this day speak to, or maybe work with in some capacity?
Yeah, I mean, there was some there's like songwriters and producers who I've seen like come out of that for a while never had any cuts, like for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then like now they're doing their thing as a writer. Her name's Goldie, who was like doing her thing. And at that time, from a creative standpoint, it was like everybody's trying to get on, and it's like it really is. Talent is one thing, but then the next layer outside of talent is how hard you're willing to work at your craft.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that like came in and out. I think one of the first projects that I was thrown into, that was not long after I've been interning, like he started to like say, all right, cool, like now you have a skill set that is valuable that I can pay money for. Before it was like, yo, that's the other thing I learned. It was like, yo, this is a thing that a lot of kids struggle with, I think, these days.
Please tell them, the kids who want to get into the music industry, please tell them, Todd.
Dude, it's like, yo, if you're not qualified, then you can't really come in with this bravado of saying, I need to make X amount of dollars. Cause it's like, what am I paying you for? You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I paying you for? Now, I do believe that, like, I do believe in paid internships. I do believe in all of that. But I think there's a misnomer where people think that because they are just them, that they deserve something in exchange for just being them. But really, you have to create your value as a whatever it is that you do. You got to create the value, and so that was also something that was. So the first, this is like years ago. Jesse McCartney, right? Wow. He was like, "Yo, we're doing this project with Jesse McCartney, and I need you to oversee it through from the beginning where there were no songs to the end of the project." And he was doing the whole project. And so I'm like, oh shit, that means budgets. That means like, I was like in the studio, you know what I'm saying? Like that means like overseeing this from beginning to end.
Clearing budgets and everything.
It was a good artist to like, to like, it was a good artist to like start like measure. Cause he was like, he had that record Leaving that was huge, but then it was like, after that, I don't know if anything really happened, but it was good in terms of like making sure the songs are quality songs, making, you know what I'm saying? Like there was a budget for it, making sure how you divvy up, like all of that kind of shit was like, exposure into that, foray of then, all right, so like you have this thing, but then as an executive, you got to learn how to manage all the moving parts of a project, right? So you got to learn how to interact with the writers, producers, the publishers, the label, the manager, the lawyer. Like there's a whole slew of verticals under that you have to learn how to interact and work with. And again, it was always great because I always could lean on them, but it was me going out first, trusting my instinct. I think that's another thing that is like super important. When someone notices something in you and someone sees something special in you, they see, I think even as new guys coming into the music business, if someone sees something in you, that means they see something in you, right? That means that you have something special. It has to be cultivated and molded. But if you have a gift, I always say, when all else fails, lean on your gift. You know what I'm saying? Lean on your instinct, lean on your gut, lean on, that's what's going to help. That's like your compass. The skill sets are what helps you take that gut feeling to a successful space. But the gut is the navigating thing, and you can't lose that. So sometimes it's like, if you're in the trenches, go where you're, I'm gonna just lean on what I know. Like I always lean on the greatness of a song. It's like, fuck, like I I haven't navigated it, but I know this artist is special because of these things. She's got a great tone, whatever, hard work. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it'll work itself out because I trust what kind of got me this far. So when someone notices that in you, that's also important.
I call it the spirit, man, because that's one thing that like you can't fake and you can't replicate, and you know, no matter where it leads you, is at least gonna lead you to a lesson. That's for
Absolutely.
sure. No matter what, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna lead you into a lesson. So just go with it. And it's scary. I do want to let y'all know that is scary. Trusting your gut is terrifying.
Yeah. It's all, the more you do it though, the less scary it is.
That's for sure.
It's like a roller coaster.
It's also like, you know, your gut. Oh, did we lose you, Todd?
Sorry.
No, all good.
I'm back.
It's also like, you know, when you choose to work on new things, like you work on something today, and in a year you might find something new that you want to add to your portfolio, you want to add up, you want to work on. It still starts with the gut feeling. And it's like you're saying, Todd, like you don't know, it's different. It could be different though. And you don't know necessarily how to navigate that space exactly, but you know, I know at the core what this is, but that, like, everything I don't know about this also makes it more interesting, you know, and that can lead to like a ton of growth, right? Because if you just stick to the same things over and over, you know, you're not learning new things. I think in music especially, it's really risky because music changes so much. I mean, I'm sure every business is changing so much, but just experience of music is like what's working today is so different in 2 years. There are core fundamentals, you know, and there's core things in each of our guts that we know we're good at no matter what. We could wake up and know how to do it like this. But because of how much shit changes, you have to be excited by things that force you to grow by taking on and learning new skill sets.
Absolutely.
What do you think your gut thing is? So you said like a song, right? So what is it that you've always kind of gone naturally excited about, and that has led you to sort of dive in onto projects?
One thing that I think transcends any kind of, wherever the music business turns, the one thing that transcends everything is melody, right? Melody is the universal language. So whether you love, like, there is something that people love, the same thing that people love about Shaka Khan, they love about Young Thug, right? Is like, it's melody. It really is melody. So even though that is 35 years later, Young Thug, he's got a special knack that is melodic, that even if you don't know what he's saying, it's still, it's like, wow, like, you know, it's like, wow, like it's hitting me right. You know what I'm saying? So you can go from, like I said, so like, I don't need to, like, I grew up on fucking Eminem and fucking, you know, rap Pharrell and all that kind of shit. But it's like, also like, I understand why there's a common thread between that and Baby Keem. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that you're like looking for or listening for. Melody and tone are just like, beats, production, yes, for sure. But like, whatever's on the bed of whatever that production is on top of the bed of the production is what is like magical. And I think that is one thing that, it's the same thing in like the TikTok world. It's like people dance to melodies. Like that's what it is. The melodies evolve. No, like people aren't overly singing over songs anymore. The melody's just more
just right
staccato,
there.
right? It's like, and so writers and artists that understand the evolution of melody are writers that are going to, and producers and writers and artists who are going to be here. But from an artist standpoint, it's you know, I always say with artistry, like, hard work supersedes everything. So I think that's one thing. I think nowadays, just if I'm being real, I am I think maybe from like a music executive side of things, I do like more when an artist has some sort of audience. It doesn't have to be a mass audience, but I do like to see, I make it like almost like Shark Tank, where the question that they ask is how many sales do you have, right? Like if we're gonna invest money into this, right? How many sales have you made? Now, some people have, millions of sales. Some people have, hundreds of thousands. But I think what they're looking for is, wow, this is a great idea. You got a great concept, and there's people that like it. How can we amplify that? If we're investing in you, how can we amplify that? And so when I'm looking at artists to sign, or, even I think through a management lens, when you're looking at artists, I think that amplification is something that is more palatable from my perspective. It's something that I can do more than purely breaking zero, right? Yeah. Because to me, this is just my opinion, right? So, and this is just how I view things. There's totally people who've done it, but I think artists are so much more connected directly to the fan that if you have something special, it's not as hard as it was to show that there's a good amount of people that like it, even if it's your intermediate community, So even if I go on your Instagram and you put a snippet of your song up and the song has 7,000 views, but it has 500 comments that people are like, yo, when are you dropping? When are you dropping? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I need to see a million things. I'm just like, okay, all right. Now I can help you. You know what I'm saying?
Amplify that audience.
Amplify that. But it's like sometimes it's like because I think from the perspective of sales, like artists have to understand that they are selling something. You know what I'm saying?
That's very
and
true.
If you're selling something, then you got to have people to sell it to. You know what I'm saying? And before, I think the old music business was more so the labels stood in between the audience and the artist. So it was easier for them, not easier, but it was more likely to say that if you have a great demo and you have a great voice, and you have
the audience,
then we can put it in front of the right people. We can put it, if you're R&B guy, we're gonna put your CD right under Donnell Jones because you're a good looking brother and you can sing, and we gonna, you know what I'm saying? It was because you control the that intersection. But now that control isn't as high for the label or whoever that company is.
In general, I feel like with content creators, whether it's artists or just a YouTuber or whatever, it's like the ability to have that audience and to sell it is everything, to brands, to investors, whether the investor is technically a label. That's all the power,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's always impressive, like you said, like it's interesting because it did used to probably be different, breaking something from 0 to 1, because it probably was largely also about knowing people that had versions of audiences lined up, right? And that still exists today, whether it was like old days where it was like one pipeline, or not maybe long ago where it was a handful of pipelines that you had to know how to attack. Whereas today you see when something comes up from 0 and hits every pipeline, and then it becomes like that doesn't feel like it had the real thing from the beginning, versus an artist that just was doing whatever they were doing, and then the music started resonating, the personality, whatever it was, and all of a sudden they have an army of people kind of behind them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting times for that. And I think not even just in music, but across like all content creator space in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Todd, it's interesting, man. I have a question. I've never asked the A&R this, but like I'm sure you hear it just like in the industry, and like I'm sure from when you look on social media, and there are groups that are like yo, A&Rs aren't signing like the real shit, or like they are just like looking at TikTok or looking at Spotify. Can you debunk that myth for me real quick?
Is it a myth?
I feel like I really feel like it's not as
it's not
extra as people do
yeah
say it is. You know what I'm saying? That like, yo, you can A&Rs only look at the numbers and only look at, there are some A&Rs who actually look at, you know, the talent and the audience, like you said, and seeing that you have some type of proof of concept, of course. But you know, I think that there is this stigma on A&Rs and labels that just like, yo, they don't sign anything that's real anymore. And I don't think,
I mean, yeah, I can definitely debunk that. I'm not really into, like, I'm personally not into, like, you know, you're popping on TikTok and you got a song. And to be honest with you, there's not that many cases. If you look at the spectrum, there's not that many cases where that like really, really, really cuts through. I think one person who like kind of transitioned really well from more like influencer-y to like actually is like a Madison Beer. Like I think she did a good job of that. But dude, I'm into shit that moves people. You know what I'm saying? I'm into shit that like where you can where you have an artist and a team. I think the team around the artist is super important. And I think that like when I'm sizing up artists, I'm personally not sizing it up from the standpoint of first off, I am an A&R for a distributor, right? So like my outlook on signing artists are to empower artists who are independent, that have audiences, that want to make money, that want to still have impact, but don't want to be in a space where they can't freely create, where they, you know, that's so I never worked for a label. So my perspective on the things that I find interesting are way wider than that small scope of what a label's looking at, because the label's business model is different than the business model of an independent artist or an independent label. Really, it's like, do you have something there that can be amplified? That's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for that do you have something there? For me, is stuff that is great music in whatever realm that is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that I define great music by like genre based. Like I said, there's certain things where like somebody might think like I don't know, someone might think that like, you know, I'm just comparing, like Kendrick is great, but I'm using Young Thug again because I think Young Thug is great. So I'm saying like you got Kendrick and Young Thug, right? And people are like, well, this is great and this is just that nonsense. But I don't look at it like that. I look at it like there's something special that he does and there's something special that he does. So I'm really just looking for whatever the artist does that's special and unique. And again, it goes back to what I said, like it goes back to great melody and a great tone. I think that's always important for me, is like, how does the voice sound on the music, and hard work, bro. Like that's the other thing. Like that's the intangible. It's like, yeah, you might not pop off right now, but are you willing to do what it takes? And your sixth year might be your year. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to rock out with you and keep building and keep convincing people to invest in you and keep, you know what I'm saying? Yes, I think I'm into debunking that theory, but it takes two to tango. You know what I'm saying? Like it definitely takes two to tango.
So I do think some artists, when they do sign with a distributor or with any sort of team management label, whatever it is, they feel like, okay, I don't have to work as hard. And it's like, no, you actually have to work even harder. Because literally nothing is guaranteed, even with this team, and nobody should be working harder than you, to tell you the truth.
Absolutely.
It's your career. Nobody cares. Nobody should care more than you either. Like, because at the end of the
day, which is why, now here's the thing. Here's what's crazy. It's hard to say that when you are at a major label to an artist. Like, you should be working the hardest. You should be doing like, because you guys are taking more than they're working for.
True. Yeah.
I feel comfortable saying that. Like, yeah, bro, you need to work hard. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But you're also getting 90%. You're also getting 80% of it. So yes. But I in defense of artists who are like fuck the system. They're fuck the system because they're like, yo, I'm busting my ass, and then I'm looking at my statements and I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? It's like, how? You know what I mean? It's this gotta be, this is different. Because if that is the case, then I want my name plastered everywhere. Like, justify the fact that I'm only getting a 9% royalty. Justify that, and then we can have the conversation. So for me, in the position that I stand, I'm here to justify why you should get 80%. You know what I mean? This is why you should get 80%. And this is why we should get 20, because here's the value that we bring that's worth 20%. And this is why you should own it.
And I think there's a balance between looking for artists that at the core have like the artist intangibles, and like now paying on your point with like the TikTok, theory, or like the numbers theory, right? Also looking for somebody that's kind of also proven they can create some sort of engagement, some sort of fan base,
There's it's right. You got to hit it like it's like a hybrid of the two.
100%, because we find artists that like are super exciting that as artists, right? Like, I think the three of us being people driven more by the art and the music, that tends to probably be more of the case. Like, I could go spend a week and come back with a few artists and I'm like, I'm so excited by this person as an artist. But it's really hard to find that hybrid, that in the middle. They've also shown that they can create some sort of level of engagement and then also can, have the artist intangible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Todd, so what was your first credit? What was your first win?
Well, the Jesse McCartney album did actually come out. It came out, and that was my first like thing that I helped and saw through and put records and found the records. That was one.
Yeah.
And then Chris Brown's Royalty album. I think that was 2015. Amazing. I had a producer and writer with 3 songs on there.
Wow.
That was one. That was like my first one that was like multiple joints. You know what I'm saying? That was like multiple joints. I've been on a few of Chris Brown's albums, or my producers or writers. Then from that point on, it was like Jeremiah, it was Tinashe. It was like we built a pretty nice catalog, publishing catalog, and I learned that once you like get in the rhythm of like placing records or leaning into the artist or writer and producer to put them in the right positions to succeed. If they have talent, it starts to like managing producers and writers, or publishing writers and producers. It starts to like, it starts to take care of itself. So yeah, that was like, I mean, there's a bunch. And then I went into like doing like electronic music. I managed artists who were doing like Steve Aoki and Dioro and shit like that.
Where did
Staples, like a bunch of shit.
Where did the transition between the studio, when you were working at the studio and running, and whatever was next, was that going into the electronic space? Was that the next transition there?
Kind of. So when I'm trying to think of exactly how it happened. I was interested in getting into management.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, one day I'm like at my apartment and Laney calls me and he's like, yo, I want to meet with you. Now we had done some good work together. And he was like, yo, I want to meet with you. You should let's go to lunch. And I'm like, all right, cool. So he comes, we go to lunch, and he's like, yo, man, I haven't had a manager in 15 years. I would love for you to manage me. And I was like, oh shit. Wow. It was like a full circle moment. This was like 3 years after I was like interning. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So then he went to do stuff on like Heartbreak on a Full Moon, and we did a lot of cool shit together as managing him. But I leveraged managing Laney to get other clients.
Yeah.
So like that was my like lily pad into like starting my own shop and management. So again, I was more like managing. There's a few like small artists that I had like small, production deals for with different labels. But it was like enough for me to sustain myself as a standalone manager. So I had, in the span of 2 years between producers, writers, and artists, even though I was like signing them and dropping them or whatever, I may have had like 12 artists that I was like on a rotating thing that I was like making money, doing shit. And the one segue into electronic music was when I started managing a DJ.
Wow.
And when I was managing the DJ, his name's Mac J. I merged my company with another company that only managed electronic acts. So that was like the synergy there was these electronic producers were making like electronic music, which was like whatever to me. But I was like, yo, they're actually dope producers. And because I came from a publishing background, I was like, yo, a lot of those guys didn't have publishing deals. So I went and got them publishing deals and started placing records for them outside of what they were doing in the outside of that world.
Yeah.
I was placing records. That's when I was doing like, we did Tinashe's Songs for You album, and we did like some shit with Vince, and we did a bunch of things. And that was when he was like, yo, like that company was like, yo, why don't we merge? Because you're creating a whole new revenue stream for these touring DJs. And what I got to experience was I didn't know shit about like promoters and all these different, I didn't know anything about that. I was straight up production, R&B, hip hop. That was my space.
Yeah,
so for me, it was like, wow, this is like a new thing for me to be a part of as well. Yeah. And I also realized that like, man, these guys who I didn't even really know are making like $25,000 a night, and they're doing like 3 shows a week. So I'm like, oh shit, like this is pretty cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I got to understand like how to route a tour, what that even meant, like knowing different promoters at different venues and just different shit I was getting exposed to. And I was also exchanging, helping to diversify their sound as producers. Cause what I know, I would be in a studio with them and I'm like, yo, the sound y'all are using are crazy. Like I got a writer who will be great on this. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was mixing and matching. So that was when I like got out of that space that I was in with Laney, more so managing him, and then segueing into that. He was the client that I brought over, a couple other clients that I had. And I did that for 2 years, 2.5 years.
What time was that? What years was that?
That was 2017 to 2019, 2020, 2019 actually.
I feel like there was a time that like R&B and electronic music just started just being together, or more like the mainstream R&B artists started taking more risk on the electronic side.
That was a time. And then there was also too, from a label deal perspective, one thing that I noticed that a lot of like electronic labels, whether it's like Ultra or Armada or these different labels, right? I was seeing how they did deals for, so the one thing that DJs have in common with rappers is they can make music in their room. Yeah. Right. So like a DJ can literally create a song, send it to a vocalist, and they can knock it out. So what I learned was like output for those are similar to output for rappers. And from a deal perspective, the electronic labels were doing like, you know, short-term deals, single deals, like basically this, it's like, it was like a machine almost.
Yeah.
And it was exposing me to how these companies were making a lot of money in a world that I wasn't necessarily exposed to, like through my traditional way of getting into the business. And from a monetization standpoint, I saw a white space for that, servicing those kinds of artists. You know, I just started to learn a lot beyond what was in front of me. That was the great lesson that I got out of that journey in my period of my life, was that was like from a deal structure, from a business side, how those companies look at artists and work with art, because it's a little different than how traditional labels look at things. Their models are a little different.
But for you to peep it and for you to know and just trust yourself enough that you could add value in that space, even though you weren't really familiar with it at the time. Like, bro, and you made some great, you made some great cuts in that time too, dog.
Yeah. So that was just like, that was, you know, one thing in the music business is relationships are key. A lot of relationships that I've built, I try not to make my relationships like about transactions. You know, I like to make them about getting to know each other first, getting to understand what you like, what I like. And because there will be a time where you'll need me or I'll need you. And it's way more likely that we'll have success together if it's not just based off of a transaction. You know, if it's based off of a more of a deeper level of a relationship. And now with my like going in my 10th year being in the music business, just now really starting to like get my footing and knowing like there's relationships that I've had, and I'm sure I'll give you an example and as we go along this conversation, that I've never, ever, ever used ever. And the one time that I need it, it goes boom. It's like, oh shit. Like now it's like, it makes sense to like, because I was like, you wait for the moment. A lot of people like young, when you're in the music business, you're like, yo, I know the head of, I got the A&R from Rock Nation, and like you hitting them with bullshit. And it's like, bro, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With bullshit.
Yeah, you got to come correct.
Use my number because you got my number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how I looked at it. I'm like, I'm not even going to hit this dude up. But the only time I'm going to hit him up is even when like, if I know, like, let's say, right, Payne, Troy, it's like, I'm like, yo, I don't even know if you would even want to sign this kid or manage this kid, but I know you're going to think it's dope. So I'll send it to you. And you're like, whoa, that shit is crazy. I'm not sure if we can do something with it, but that's crazy. So what I'm building with you is every time Todd sends me something, it's something dope. Even if whether I can do something with it or not, it's something dope. So the one moment where I'm like, yo, dog, I actually think this is for you. We built a trust.
Yeah.
But if you like, yeah, Nez coming like, yo, Todd, this nigga, man. Then you start to look at the phone like, you're like, all right. You know what I mean? Like, all right, this guy. All right. But, you know, so I think it's super important that what I getting those cuts were because I never had a reason to press the button for those relationships. And then when I had the thing, I was like, yo, I think I got something, yo. You know what I'm saying? Or put this guy with the, you know, it's just a way to go about it.
100%.
Like you knew what would excite those relationships the most genuinely. Like you gotta know. Yeah, you gotta know when it's gonna go both ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, because having the key is being able to hit somebody up.
Yeah.
you know. But you're right, like you waste that and you bring them some bullshit, it's just it gets tough after that.
It's tough.
It does.
You know?
It does.
But sometimes you're forced. Sometimes you're in a position as like a manager, an A&R. I call you a manager at this point, even if you're an A&R, because it's just you're
managing a lot of shit.
Yeah. You know, especially with the way you move with your clients, it's like, you know, when you're in that position, your job is to go as hard as possible, regardless, right? So
of course,
you're put in a position where you might be able to get to so and so or this or that person, but you might not. You might know it's not the right time. It's not the right. It's not the right thing. But you sometimes have to do that as, you know, for your client. So that's a tough thing to navigate at times. You know, but I guess it always depends like where the client's at in their journey, you know, and how to make something make sense for everybody at the end of the day. Yeah. So you're working then in the electronic space, but you're really like merging a lot of the songwriter experience, and you're getting experience in publishing. Where does then create come in, or am I skipping like a million steps?
No,
I'm
you're
assuming
perfect.
It's 2019. Like it's not long ago.
Yeah, you're right in the ball. So, okay, through this management experience, I learned so much from it. I'm big on taking lessons out of everything you have, and not necessarily having a reason for the lesson, but knowing that, accepting whatever it is. So one of the things that I was discovering, myself and my partner at the time, George, we were like, yo, man, we got all these artists. Some are at distributors. Some are signed to like small independent labels. Some are signed to majors. We're interacting with publishers. And as managers, we're like, damn, yo, we're doing all the work. We have this expectation from all of our partners, but we're doing most of the work alongside our clients in terms of like, yeah, they gave us the money, but we're like leveraging our relationships to do shit and leveraging our relationships to structure the right rollout and marketing strategy and digital. Like we were doing a lot of things that we were expecting from our partners. And the one thing that I noticed, that we both noticed, was, this independent artist thing is like, people are like really talking about it, and artists are really getting hip to like, if I have a team and I have relationships and I have fans, then I don't necessarily need the label as much as I needed them. So we were like, if we can figure out a way, especially for distributors, but because the problem with distributors were like, yeah, they don't do shit. It was like, yeah, or it was like artists would be at distributors and they would go from one distributor to another distributor to another distributor to another one. Because that's what we were doing as managers. We were like, all right, yeah, fuck this distributor. We're going to go to this one. And we realized that it was just kind of like musical chairs. It was like, yeah, it's kind of all similar. So I wanted to figure out, how do you, if you're an artist, what would make you want to never leave your distributor? That was the problem that I tried to solve, because as a manager, I didn't want to keep playing musical chairs with distributors. I wanted to be at a place that was taking 15 to 20%, that we just wanted to continually do. Like, if we got a big record with a big artist, we want to give it to the distributor and not the label, because they've proven to us that they can handle what content we're delivering to them. And so the problem that I wanted to solve was retention and signing bigger artists. So it's like, how do you sign big artists as a distributor and convince them to never go back to a major label? That's what I believe one of my, like, that's a purpose that I stand on for me as just an A&R. And so Create, at the time, we had a friend that worked for Create, and we had just heard about them. They were like this YouTube company, and we were like, we knew them for like YouTube shit, and we knew them for 6ix9ine. And we were like, but they were like, they started to like spend more money on artists. Like they were like putting more money on artists. But what wasn't there was the servicing piece. So it was like they would give so if you as a distributor, your margins are different than labels, right? You're banking on a small margin. So when you spend money, you would hope that you or the client was spending the money in the right ways to make a return on the investment.
Yeah.
And what that requires is a team that can help navigate the managers, the labels, the artists, to navigate through the spaces of releasing music and monetizing the music properly. And so they started retaining our management company with clients that they were more invested in. So they were like, yo, we spent more money on this artist. We need a team that's going to help us make the money back, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, A&R became evolving as this like hybrid between marketing and music. That's where I sit, like content and marketing, right? It's like, how do you know, that's like, so we started doing that as a consultant for like 3 months. And then after the 3rd month, they were like, yo, we kind of want to like take the company in this direction more of servicing artists that are independent and signing them, but also too, like when you sign an artist to a distributor, maybe the first 8 months, if you spend a lot of money, maybe the first 8 to 9 months aren't profitable, right? But the way to be profitable is to keep the artist, right? Because you're really fucked if they go there, you do a 2-year deal, you spend a bunch of money, they leave and go to Empire, or they leave and go to Cobalt, right? It's like you're stuck with that catalog hoping that it does.
Yeah.
But where the success is, if they come and they're like, yo, I want to stay here. And then when you have an artist that is a sizable artist, it's like, yo, I'm doing a record with DJ Snake, I'm doing a record with Drake. Now your wager becomes higher because they trust you. So they're giving you things that's going to help bring return. But the only way to get that trust is to know that a team is there that's capable of handling an artist of that size. That's the problem that I will be solving from now until whenever I'm out of here.
Is that the most, because I was just about to ask you, like, what's the most frustrating thing about your job? Like, what is the thing that just aggs you the most? But I feel like, talking to you, you are a person that learns from every situation that comes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's something that is like, why?
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
One of the things that's frustrating for me as being this voice of artist independence and artist support in the independent space is the educational gap that exists from how to monetize music properly in this space as an artist, right? So there's like a curve where I spend a lot of my time educating artists because I believe everyone in any business deserves to be educated properly. And one of the reasons why people get fucked is just because they don't know. So sometimes, I'll be working with an artist or a team and they're like, yo, I want a bunch of money. And it's like, and it's between y'all or it's between Interscope or it's between y'all and it's between Atlantic. And it's like, okay, let me just explain something. Their model is different than our model.
Yeah.
The reason why we can't afford to give you X amount of dollars like they are is because we're not sitting on your catalog for 70 years, right? We have small margins. We want to make sure I'm educating them on what this new deal looks like. Like, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, I want to own all my shit and I want all the money. And I don't want you to talk to me and tell me what songs to put out. It's like, all right, okay. What do you really want? You want freedom? You want creative freedom? Okay. That's going to come with less money because I'm banking on you to make the right decisions with the right song, which I'm okay with. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm okay with you. Like, yo, if you wake up on a Thursday and you want to put out a song on a Friday, be my guest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Be my guest. But that freedom doesn't exist at the label, right? Okay. You want $1 million? I can't give you $1 million. I could give you 500,000 and you can have your creative freedom. And I'm only asking to take 20%, right? Now, if you want to go, if you need $1 million, go get it there. But I just want you to know what you're giving up in exchange for the $1 million. Yeah. I'm not mad at you for doing that either, but I want you to understand what it is. So my frustration comes in like artists wanting things, wanting their cake and eating it too. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the most frustrating parts for me. So, but it's frustrating, but it's gratifying at the same time because because people took the time to teach me some shit.
Yeah.
I like teaching people or educating people on how the business works. So even if I don't get the deal, I feel that I do get joy out of saying like, yo, every deal that I've lost, everybody will tell you, yo, I fuck with Todd because he told me the truth. He kept it 100 with me and he wasn't just telling me anything just to get the deal done. That's not me because my relationships with artists, the artist community and managers are way more important than just closing the deal. You know what I'm saying? That's just more important to me. So it's like, I'd rather you respect what I showed you and taught you. It'll come back one way or the other. You might have a baby artist that you're like, yo, Todd, fuck with this guy. You know what I'm saying? That's, you know, so it's a double-edged sword for me.
Where do you think, all right, so let's say with your model, at what point, you know, you're trying to keep basically artists at the distributor, artists are getting bigger and bigger, but staying with you. At what point do you either lose the artist or do you start operating like a major?
Good question. So these are things that I think about all day long.
Good. I want these answers.
So you, at the end of the day, right? It's all about exchange is just all about what you place value on, right? It's like at a certain point, if an artist is like, man, I value being able to create openly and freely and doing what I love to do. And I make a living doing that and I'm touring and I'm like, right. Maybe a $10 million doesn't excite them because they know like, you know, unless it's Drake, but I'm saying like, you know, at a certain point, it's like, it's just about what they place value on and the team, what they place value on. So sometimes losing an artist that you've helped build up as an indie to a major label is not the fault of anyone's. It's not the fault of the distributor. It's just that their values superseded what you could offer at the time. Like, that's just what it is. And sometimes, you know, it's dangerous to like try to compete and keep the artist you know what I'm saying? All the time. I think, so it really just becomes, to answer the question, when we max out, it's just about what they choose to value a little more. Their lifestyle might be different, bro. Like, you know, you might have signed an artist when they didn't have any kids and now they have 2 kids and they're thinking about different shit. And they're like, you know what? I'm thinking about, instead of, I know I was putting 3 albums out a year, I'm gonna put 1 out. And I know that with this model, I might get less money for putting 1 album out. But at a label, I might be able to get more, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I value that more. My lifestyle's different. It's all good. You know what I mean? But at that point, the artist also has leverage, right? Where they can say, yo, I'm going to sign with this label. If we can build an artist to a point where they have so much leverage where they can say, but I do want to carve out in my deal where I can, once every quarter, I can put out a mixtape with this distributor. If we built them up to that level to get leverage to go in there and negotiate a deal where we're still involved because they fuck with us, that's a win. When we operate as a major is when we see an artist. Well, when I look at it is right, I'm looking at artists who I think understand their audience and why and what their audience responds to, right? Because it's counterproductive to my cell of creative freedom, I'm trusting artists who I believe understand what creative freedom means, where they're not gonna like they'll never go on a track and be like and put it out, because they understand that their audience doesn't want to hear, like, because that's the risk that you take when you say I don't need to be involved in the making of the music. The risk that you take is that they're gonna do some bullshit and you're not gonna get the money. You know what I'm saying? But so I'm looking for artists who have that relationship with their fans that know they're gonna love this when I do this, they're gonna hate this when I do that. So when you're making those decisions, I'm like, cool, you gave us the EP. I'm trusting that you know what they like. And if you do something wild, it's counterintuitive to your brand anyway. So you're not gonna do that. And so I'm looking at artists. We operate as a label, and I'll redefine what that really means. But we operate in fully servicing an artist. I'm looking at artists that understand that about themselves. So if I'm having a conversation with an artist, it's already understood that I think that you know what you're doing in the studio, that I think that you know what your fans like, that I think that you know how your merch should be designed. I wouldn't be having a conversation if I didn't think that was the case, you know? Yeah. So the artists that I sign are the artists that are aware of that, the artists that we operate more as a label, because I always say, distributors are not labels. So but the model that I'm trying to create and have been successful doing are ones that allow you to lean on your distributor in a way that justifies their split way more than what's on the paper. Yeah. So if you got an 85-15 and the distributor feels like they're giving you 30, you ain't gonna never want to leave. Yeah. You ain't gonna never want to leave.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you're like,
hold on 1 second. I'm listening to you. I just needed to check something quickly.
No worries. You're sort of in this interesting position because, right, like traditional distribution, you give somebody maybe some money, they put it out through your channel. Let's just leave it at that, right?
Yep.
But you kind of come in as a art and culture executive who understands music, who understands how to operate with artists, and you provide them a champion, which I find interesting too, because it's like you go into a meeting for a major and you sit down in a room and maybe they put like 25 people at the table. Yeah. Right. And I always make the joke, it's like 10 of those people won't be here within the next 2 years. It's the nature of it. You can't blame them. That's what they're supposed to do in that position. And you hope that 5 of them are like truly from day one, your champions.
Yep.
You hope. Once you start popping, if you can get that far, then another 10, 15 maybe become forced to be your champions. You get to Billie Eilish's level. The label is your whole champion every time you say you're going to do something, right?
Yeah.
But you're kind of coming in, which is something I think is interesting, and I'm applauding you for it. You come into a company like Create, who's focused largely on the tech space. You know, we could have probably a whole other conversation about what they do on YouTube, but they're obviously like the A-list players in monetizing YouTube and that space. And you bring basically a walking champion who can work with artists. And when you have that, you have somebody that artists feel comfortable with, are willing maybe to take a larger chance on doing a certain type of deal with. And like you're saying, you know, they're feeling like they're getting more of the percentage, because most of the frustration from my perspective on artists that we've worked with at labels was that it wasn't a lot of things that you would think on paper they didn't have. It was that they didn't have the champions. They didn't have the people going as hard as possible. I mean, I once managed an artist, you know, who must not be named, but walked into a label the day we put up her first ever show, literally first ever show ever. And in an hour, you know, it was probably like a 250 cap. In an hour, I'm in the label, we're 150 tickets in. $75 right on the on sale, right? So I'm going into a label being like, fuck, is this going to go left or is this going to go right? It goes as on sale goes on, it goes as good as possible. Walk into the office of somebody that's working on that artist's team, and that person says to me, they're saying, oh, how's everything going? There's a lot of negativity being thrown around. And I'm seeing all the rising steam because I'm like, yo, we also just sold 150 tickets. We're going to sell this shit out way in advance, right? Like day up or next day. And the person made the comment, why would you sell that many tickets? Like, the person's not ready to do that. And you're talking about 250 cap. You're not talking about 2,000 cap venue.
Of course.
The person said to me, word for word, you should put a curtain. You can't stop it right now and put a curtain up in the back and just make it 150 cap. And the only thing I could think about is if the artist was here, they'd never want this person anywhere near their work again.
Not at all.
Right? That person might sit in a position and have certain responsibilities and access to certain connections because of that position they sit in and because they've gone and formed genuine relationships and done a lot of hard work on their own. I don't take that away from anybody. But for the artist, it's about the champion. And that's something that can never be undervalued, you know? Of course. Which is where I think you sit in an interesting position again, because if you're able to go in and excite artists and show them how hard you're going to go for them and fight for them, that's a service they really, whether they know it or not, I think they genuinely want from the major. It's like, that's, you know,
bro,
that's what it comes down to.
With the records, don't excite every single body, and you gotta lean on that champion, dog. You gotta lean on him to make, you know, him or her to make the room move, even though they don't want to move.
People.
I was listening to I was watching. Somebody said, I forgot who it was. Anyway, I think one of the most important things about the job that's intangible, that's just not on paper, is your ability to motivate people, right? It's your ability to make people excited about things that you believe in, things that you're excited about, things that they should be excited about. Maybe exposing them to a side. Everything is all about how you look at shit, right? Like, you look at something, you see it one way. I look at something, I see it another way. And if you believe in the way that you see it, your job is to, and not in a way that's like shady, but more so in a way that's like, yo, like, y'all don't see that? You don't see this? Like, this is how it could work. I think that the other piece is you're like managing, and you said it earlier, Troy, like A&R is really like, you're managing, the job is managing personalities and people, bro. It's really, that's what it becomes about. Like, yeah, the numbers, yeah. But if you can't, the artist language, if you can speak the artist language and the business language, oh my God. Yeah. And the artist language is an emotional language because they are emotional beings. So it's not about what's on the paper for the artist. It's about how they feel with the person that they're talking to. So the manager might be way more transactional, like, hey, you know, doesn't say, you know, can we get the royalty? Yeah, sure, whatever. But I'm saying the artist is real. So you got to be real with the artist. You got to be like, yo, man, I say this shit all the time. Like, you perfect. You like it? No, I don't like it. But if you like it, put it out. Oh. That makes an artist feel like, damn, he was honest and he trusts me. Like, all right, cool. Like, I'm gonna put it. But it also makes the artist go like, it's a two-way street, because anytime an artist is like going crazy, I just let them go crazy. I'll be like, yo, man, Sith, look, why don't you just do it your way? Why don't you just do it your way?
Yeah.
And then I'll get off the phone, and an hour later they'll call and say, yo, you know, I was thinking about it. And what were you saying again? And it's like, yo, look, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying, hear me out. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm just asking for the same respect that I'm giving you. Because business people go to the artists more as dictators. Like,
Yeah.
If you don't do that, it's wrong. And if you do it my way, it's right. It's like, nah, none of us really know.
Yeah,
the audience is
know.
the only metric of what's right or what works. So I'm just saying, like, throw this in the pot when you're thinking about whatever you're thinking about. And then you start to build this respect, mutual respect, where the artist is trusting your decisions. You're trusting the artist's decisions. They want to include you in things. You want to include them in things. Like, it's a harmonious relationship. And I just think the music business in general is just the scary part of the music business is the artist doesn't trust the machine.
Yeah.
You know, they don't trust the machine. And our job is to create the trust and then get results. When we get results, trust is heightened. It's like any other relationship, yo. It's like, yo, I trust you because I've seen what my gut told me come to fruition, right? Yeah. And so, and then honesty. It's like, you know, man, I know we went for this, we didn't get it, and you know, here's why I think we didn't get it. I'm always about what can we do better? Mm-hmm. Are you okay? Yeah. How did you feel about this rollout? Mm-hmm. How, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sometimes silence leads to, sometimes not having the conversation leads to like a blow up moment. All you got to do is get in front of the train and say, yo, we put this video out. How did you think it was? You know what? I like most of it, but the one part of it, I think we could have done better. You know what? Let me make sure we go ahead and do that. Yeah. But if you don't say anything and then you make a second mistake and a third mistake, then they come in like, man, I want to get out of my deal. Fuck everybody.
That's real.
It's just knowing how to deal with people, bro.
Have you seen?
It's seeking to be empathetic more than being right. You know what I'm saying? And that's what people in the music, executives and everybody wants to be right. I just want to understand. Yeah. I just want to understand you, and I want you to understand me, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, we're building something.
That's the best gift, to be able to articulate to both sides of the creative and the business side, and to be able to navigate the space and have both sides trust you, trust your people, trust your voice. Because if both sides trust you, dog, you're gonna make something real happen.
Something's gonna happen, man. And I think, you know, because I got to jump shortly, but the one thing that I think I'm learning, and this is just a life lesson about, and people say it all the time, like success is the journey, but like, we got to look at life, career, relationships as on a continuum more than we look at it as a beginning and a finality, right? Like if we look at things, your relationship with your artist, your relationship with your wife, whatever, if you look at it as a continual spectrum, what it allows you to do is step outside of it and know that whatever happened in 2017, or whatever lesson you learned in 2017, eventually you'll find the answer through the continuum of that spectrum. If you look at it like, I need to know the lesson that I learned in 2017 by 2020, you're always going to be frustrated. You're always going to be, because that's not a realistic way. That's not a realistic way of looking at any type of successful journey. If the success is looking at it and saying that, remember in 2009, remember how you were in 2009, remember the lessons that you learned in 2009. Now feel that right now. Feel those lessons that you learn right now. And when you look at it like that, that's how I approach just talking to artists and deals and stuff like that. It's like, yo, let's look at what you want to build on a spectrum. Not like, after this, I need 100 million views. I don't look at shit like that, yo. I don't look at shit like that. I don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
This is not me. So I just encourage that mindset. If an artist has that approach, if a manager has that approach, a business manager, a lawyer, if we all have an approach, from seeking to understand more than being right, and if we look at the trajectory of the artist or whatever it is on a continuum, as opposed to saying, and if 18 months we ain't recouped, it's failed. Because if you look at it like that, then after that, the artist is going to leave. But if you look at it as like, because now you're starting to get now you're starting to get the best. You want the artist to give them the best you, because everybody wins when they're giving you your best.
That's real.
Well, Todd,
powerful, bro.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. I know you got to jump.
Man,
I've been on it for a while. There's a lot more that
I know we can, dude. I'm down to do a part 2. I just
give it a few months. We want to see the next step of progress. Like you just said, you know, there's a crucial point in your novel, right? Read that yesterday on your post. So we're excited to see what's next. But confident, curious, understanding, like you said, any artist working with you is lucky. And I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking the time to join us and have this conversation.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys for having me, yo. Really appreciate it and love what you guys are doing. And that's a gem for y'all. Look at what you guys are building as a continuum. You know what I'm saying? It's a continual destiny, a journey of what you're building out, and the success of what you're doing is happening in real time. It's not, don't look at it as, man, you know, at this time we need to be here. It's like, no, just be great as you continue to bring guests on, and it's happening as we speak. So salute.
Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it. We're gonna chop it up with you soon.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, peace.